you share them with. And it's life, and the point is enjoying who you share it.
This is another episode of Field Tested with Brad Arrington, and I have my good buddy down here on the right, from high school, Mr. Danny Bennett. We have, hunted and fished and worked at CSX as diesel mechanics, and right here next to me, a living legend, somebody I grew up on, watching TV. Super excited. This is such an honor. I'm sitting here shaking next to Mr. Hank Parker. So excited to have you guys.
Appreciate you having me for sure.
Same as well on this end.
Y'all go all the way back to high school, huh?
Long time. I'm getting old now, Brad. That's a few days ago.
I know it. No, a bunch of great memories over the years with Danny, dove hunting and building some dogs with Danny and working at the railroad together. And this podcast is about leadership and how to follow. And, over the years, Danny is an entrepreneur, an visionary, and everything he does, he leads well. And it has been an honor and a pleasure to call him my friend over the years. And I'm super excited. I have been super pumped about getting Danny on here. He speaks so well, but then he told me that y'all were fishing this week together, and he surprised me with your presence down here, Mr. Hank, and you talking about a kid in a candy shop right now. I know I'm supposed to keep this to 45 minutes to an hour where you guys can go fishing, but I'd sit here and talk to you two for days.
Same here.
Well, we got to get on the lake, man. I'm excited. We got warm weather, man. The fish are going to be just jumping in the boat. I like that.
Well, I told Tammy this week, I said, I think Hank and I are going to go fish all week. Just joking, just picking with her. We planned to go. You called, let's go one day. Well, I went out and pre-fished and had a really good day. And I said, Hank, we need to go to Florida too. He said, let's go. So I told Tammy, I said, I wasn't kidding. I think I'm going to be gone all week. So here we go.
Yeah, you got the warm weather. Y'all's fish are going to start biting, and my ducks are going to not want to fly.
Oh, yeah. They're going to try to go north.
That's right. Well, want to tell a funny story on you right quick, Mr. Hank. And I didn't even prep you about this when we rode around and I give you a tour of the property or whatever, but I don't know, it's probably 12, 15 years ago. A mutual friend of ours named Richard Blythe, right here local. I was training dogs, but to some of our dog training customers that would come stay in the lodge, get their dogs trained in the spring, me and a great friend of mine, Mr. Hunter Boatwright, would take them turkey hunting. And Mr. Richard called me up and said, Brad, we're planting and we got everything going on and the boys are busy. And you or Hunter got any birds that y'all could go take a great friend of mine turkey hunting? And I called Hunter, and Hunter said, yeah, I got a bird down there on the Bennett farm. I could take him. Never told me who we were taking. It was just a special guest, right? So, sure enough, that morning, you showed up and got in a truck with Hunter, and y'all took off. And Hunter already had this bird pegged and roosted and everything, and I thought it was going to be a wham, bam, knock it out, right? Well, Hunter texted me, and he said this bird got henned up. He flew down out of range, about 75 yards, and there's 15 hens out there. And Brad, I can't do nothing with him. And you had to jet out of here by lunch that day. Mr. Richard already prepped me, so I got on the phone. I called Mr. Richard. I said, "Hey, you guessed. My bird's hemmed up. It was a good bird, mature bird, but the bird's hemmed up." And he said, "No, he's got time." He said, "Brad, you know who that is, don't you?" I said, "I don't have a clue. It was dark this morning when he got in the truck with Hunter." He said, "That's Mr. Hank Parker."
Oh.
I said, "That's funny. Two men called Hank Parker." And he said, "No, that's Hank Parker." And I said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "Well, Mr. Richard, I hate he's on the time crunch, but if I strike out and Hunter strikes out with Hank Parker, we'll have to just keep driving to Mexico. We'll have to leave the country." Well, anyways, fast forward this story where it don't take too long, but I text Hunter. I said, "Listen, you got to make this bird." He said, "Well, when the hens go to nest or whatever, that bird will be by itself. Well, he'll come to me. He texted me back. He said, "Hey, Mr. Hank, kind of moving around and right here. And I don't think he's getting a little restless. He isn't going to wait it out." And I said, "Well, just talk to him. Try, don't upset him now. Don't upset him. You know who you got there. Don't upset Mr. Hank." And he texted me back, and he said, "Man, he's rustling around." Well, about that time, about an hour later, y'all pulled up. And I said, "Oh, my gosh, they struck out." And Hunter is probably the best turkey hunter I've ever met in my life. We've had this lease in, our lodge in Nebraska, Bassett, Nebraska, and he kills guides 50 to 60 Merriam and Rio turkeys every year out there, killed more birds than I know of anybody. And he come to me that day. Now, this was 15 years ago. He come to me. He said, "You ain't going to believe what happened." And I said, "Tell me." He said he looked over at me and said, "You want to kill that bird, son?" And I just knew he was moving around. He said, "I knew this man was going to bust." And I knew Hank Parton knew how to fish, but I said, he just doesn't know about his turkey hunting. He said about that time he got on his hands and knees and belly crawled out there in that field and pulled a fan out. And he said he did that fan, and that turkey broke out a strut and left them hens and run over there. Mr. Hank threw the fan down, shot him upside the head. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of fanning. That is the first time Hunter Boatwright had ever seen fanning. And ever since then, you've probably kept us in the turkey business.
I regret that I ever learned that technique. It has killed more turkeys, and it's probably not good. I've just about quit fanning completely. They've finally made it illegal in South Carolina, but it is just deadly. I was in Florida 40 years ago, trying to kill the Grand Slam. And I had a turkey that was in he'd fly down in the orange grove. They had, for whatever reason, these orange trees in the middle of the grove, they died out. So they replanted them, and they were just little saplings. And so they planted wheat to hold the soil together before they planted the little sapling orange trees. Well, this turkey that I was hunting, he'd fly down in that wheat field, and he'd gobble and gobble and gobble, but he wouldn't leave it. He's going to stay right there, and then he'd call all the hens to him. We're reversing nature anyway, because a turkey gets out into the open, and he displays and puts his fan out, and his head turns colors, and he gobbles, and the hens come to him. For us to bring him, we're reversing nature. But anyway, I couldn't do nothing with this bird. Now, I fooled with him, and I was down there, and I paid to hunt, and it was the only place that I had, and I couldn't kill the turkey. So I spent 3 days with him, and the third day at lunchtime, I gave up. I said, I ain't going to kill this turkey. So I go back to the lodge, and there's an old man there, and he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "That turkey ain't coming." He said, "Do you know where he's at?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you want to kill him?" I said, "Yeah, I want to kill him. I spent 3 days. He said, "Come on, I'll go with you, and I'll show you how to kill him." I said, "Okay." So we go over there, and he says, "Do you know where the turkey's at?" I said, "Yeah, he's right down there in the wheat field." He said, "Any way to get to him faster?" I said, "Yeah, we can fall off in this ditch beside this canal, and we can get within about 200 yards of him." He said, 200 yards, that'll work. So we get up there, and he gets that fan, and he said, "Now, what I want you to do is put your hand on my back, and I want you to walk with me, and we're going to kill this turkey." And I thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So here we go. We start walking out through there, and I'm thinking, somebody's videoing me, and they're going to make a fool out of me.
You get pranked.
2 grown men walking in the orange.
Towards the turkey.
Yeah, toward the turkey, and he's holding his fan. I thought, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. This was 40 years ago. And we go out there, and he says, "How close you want him?" I said, 35 yards. He said, "Well, pull off my right shoulder and shoot him."
Oof.
And I'm thinking, this is no possible way, because all I've seen is his back. I figured the turkeys already flew out of the field. And I look, and that turkey's running straight toward me.
You better shoot fast.
Wow. And when I killed him, he said, "I want you to do me a favor." I said, "All right." He said, "I don't want you to ever tell anybody." So until he died, I never told a soul. I never showed anybody. I could kill any turkey in the world. I mean, it was just crazy. So it's really unfair. I think strutting decoys are unfair. I think fanning's unfair. I go back. My favorite way to go turkey hunting is put a call in my pocket and have a little glass call in my vest and just go no decoy. Just go out in the woods one-on-one and call and kill that turkey. That's my favorite way. But fanning will definitely kill a turkey.
Well, you had somewhere to be that day, so we'll let you slide. You was in a hurry. You had to go. But
I rushed him up.
I tell you what, just like that gentleman 40 years ago, he gave you an education. We got an education, and it has been one we have listened to and followed and learned for a lot of years now. That's probably 15 years ago. And speaking of following and learning and being humble, because at that time around here, we were the only ones really guiding turkey hunts. But that's kind of what this podcast and what I have learned over the years, that what inspires Brad. And, I led a pack of dogs, and I enjoyed taking a pack of dogs and training them, and, all different personalities. Everybody says read water dog, and, it's cookie cutter and they're all the same. Well, that might be the silliest thing you could tell somebody. I love the water dog. It's sitting right up there. That book is right there on my bookshelf, and I've read it.
Richard Walter.
That's right.
Yeah, I read that book.
Yeah, I have read it a million times, and it has a lot of valuable information in it. But there's all kind of different personalities of dogs, and to lead that, and I was so driven by the field trial world to learn how to keep that balancing act, and you train every one of them different. And then I noticed me and Miss Ellen had 4 kids, and I started doing a lot of coaching. I coached middle school football, and I coached some baseball and some travel league baseball. Well, it's the same thing with that. The shortstop's got a different personality than the right fielder, but to make it work, the whole team has to come together. And then we have 100 employees here at Mossy Pond. All kind of different personalities, from the cooks to the guides to the egos of a bunch of, at the bunkhouse, we got 30 men over there that are the best and the best at duck calling and tricking and concealment and being conservationist. And then you have the dog trainers over here with the egos of those guys that they're the best of the best. Carter Turner right now is the best in the world at retriever training. And having all those personalities, what I get up every morning excited to lead a pack of men, a pack of dogs, and a group of kids at the ball field. But how do you keep that elite standard without breaking them, holding them accountable, and then how do you follow? How do you be selfless, and how do you pride doesn't get in the way? And I listened to you and you the other day at First Baptist, and you lead in your walk of Christ, and you use your platform, which is so amazing, to teach and lead people to the Lord. And I said, if there is any way that I could get Mr. Hank Parker on here, and Danny over the years, his walk with Christ and how he's led people, it's just so inspiring to watch him grow in maturity in life, and how he raises his family, and how he leads his team at Huckleberry Apparel. I mean, to have you two on here today to talk about leading and following, it is a true honor and a blessing. So I'm going to hush. And if you will, Mr. Hank, just tell the listeners about how you got into this, how you've learned to lead and lead to the Lord in that elite manner. Here's, me and Danny were talking about this the other day, and I'm bouncing all over the place. But to lead to the Lord and have that Christ-like walk. But you're the best bass fisherman there is. To have that elite standard, you have to be different. But to do it Christ-like.
Well, you talk about leading. You a lot of times you lead, and once you get to a plateau where you're trying to achieve, whether it's bass fishing or dog competition in field trials, as you've participated in many, many times, once you hit that success level and things start happening and you start getting sponsors and this stuff starts working and you start getting numbers and you got people lined up trying to buy your dogs and everything you try to achieve, all of a sudden you've been a leader, but now you're getting led. You don't even realize sometimes, and I'm talking about myself, you work so hard and you're making the decisions and you're leading your whole journey on where you're going. And then all of a sudden you realize that once you reach a certain plateau that you're actually being led. You don't have the freedom and the liberties that you once had because you've got obligations and commitments, and those commitments and obligations actually turn out leading you to do things that you really don't enjoy doing. And so it's always a constant struggle to keep priorities in line. And when I competed as a fisherman, I think competition brings out the best and the worst. I think it does. It's a challenge to stay humble. It's a challenge to stay focused. And when you get so wrapped up, and I did this, and I'm speaking from experience, I got so wrapped up in my career and the demands and trying to be the best fisherman in the world, and my priorities got out of whack. My priorities with the Lord got out of whack. My priorities with my family got out of whack. And so it's a constant struggle. And life really goes by quickly, and you don't realize that. How old are you, Brad?
42.
I used to be 42. Been a while back. You're 42 also, aren't you?
45.
45-year-old man, look here. Woo, I was 45 one time too. But anyway, you don't realize at 42 or 45, you're starting to realize that life is pretty short. But at 70, you realize life is very, very short, and it goes by quickly. And so maintaining and balancing priorities are very, very important because you can't go back and change things. Whether you're a father, a friend, you gotta live today for today, and you gotta keep your priorities right, and you gotta put the Lord first in your life. And we struggle so hard to be successful, and I think that is in a man's DNA. I think God made us as providers. We want to provide for our family, we want to be successful, and we want security for our family. And in doing that, you just make all these sacrifices and you think it's okay, but it's not okay. There's parameters, there's guidelines, and there's a rule that you have to follow. And I didn't follow that. And I got myself way out into left field, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't content. I didn't have that peace of knowing that I was in the center of God's will. And I just stressed myself because it was about me. And it was about me being successful. And I had my own theories and my own philosophies on how to go about doing this. And finally, it dawned on me when I got to a point that I was just so miserable that it really isn't about me. And it really isn't about me leading. It's about me following. And if I'll follow God's will, He will bless me. But I have to operate within the parameters of God's will in order to have that peace that only God can give. The biggest lie in the world that the devil tells is the more successful you are, the happier you're going to be. And it's pretty much the opposite. I've watched it. I've got so many friends that are very wealthy, and they've sacrificed so much, and they've achieved that goal in the eyes of the world, but they haven't achieved that in their heart. They're not happy. They're driven.
Yep.
And it's so easy to fall into that. And it's almost hard not to fall into it.
Well, contentment, that's a word that we chase. I bet now you can name, well, matter of fact, you and I went to a place in Alabama without calling, the place. And I would dare say some of the places that you're able to fish, the people that own it probably never go down there and fish. They have it because of this work ethic. And, even as we sit here to sort of add to that and back up, when you started, Brad, I was just thinking when we got here just now, we did a little quick tour. I've not seen a good bit of that. I mean, it's amazing what you've added. And, Brad and I were talking the other day, and I told Brad, I said, man, when you cross my mind, I pray for you. And that led into a conversation of so many times, especially when a man is trying to walk by faith, people relate success to sin, absolutely, just immediately. Often when you speak to people about that, now granted, that certainly can be a factor. But I look around and I see this, and I'm so proud. I've seen the work. Brad, to give you a backstory, we worked together at the railroad. Brad was the first one. Brad left CSX when people didn't leave CSX. That was, it was a good job to have, retirement, and you were just crazy to do it. And Brad left. Well, Brad actually was the one that encouraged me to leave. Brad was one, obviously my wife as well. But Brad said, man, when you leave and you put your full time into that, it'll be good. And, I sit here today and we ride around and I look and I think of all the conversations through the years that we've had of just, man, you don't quit. You keep coming and you keep coming and you keep coming. And people don't see that side. And when I talk to you, it's easy for you to throw out, man, Grand Slam, 2-time Bassmaster Classic winner and this stuff. But what people don't often hear is when you started, how many boats did you win in like 2 years when you went? How many was that?
Yeah, I won 6 in 3 weeks once. That was
6
pretty
boats.
good. I won 3 tournaments back to back and won big fish in all 3 tournaments. And it's
What
kind of
separates
wild.
that? Because here's the deal.
It's kind of
all right.
wild.
So here's the thing. I've been in the boat with you. Been for the first time I got in the boat with you, man. You were my hero growing up. The outdoors was what helped keep me sane. Grew up rough, and that was what kept my mind right. Still does. And the first time you and I got in the boat together, you put me in your boat, which, by the way, he won't let a piece of dust fall on this boat. He don't want a fish to fall in the boat. He said, you get over here and drive. Brad, my place is on your phone. I didn't know where I was going. What direction? I couldn't focus. I just lucked up and landed on a fish and caught it. And I said, "Thank you, Lord." Well, then he gets up in front of the boat, throws the crankbait, starts catching bass, and man, I just caught myself in the back of the boat. Just emotion hit me, and I thought, Lord, who am I that you would allow me to meet my hero and go fishing with him? You mentioned Richard Blythe earlier, and I think about integrity. I think about you've been the man. You've been good to me. No matter what, you've had opportunities to go other places. You've been faithful. I can count on your word and your friendship to me. Hank is that way. People say, what's Hank Barker like behind the scenes? I say, he is who he says he is.
That's right.
Never heard a foul word come out of his mouth. He loves Jesus. Mm-hmm. What separated you back then? Because listen, it wasn't that you were the only man that were in the boat. You came out of nowhere. And I've seen you throw a spinnerbait. It's amazing, but I feel like I'm pretty good. But I mean, how are you smoking those guys? Like, it's a God thing. You're awesome, but speak to that.
Well, when I was a kid, I fished a lot. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you right now, I have struggled. I have struggled since Forward Facing Sonar came on the scene because it's hard for me to accept a new method of fishing that I can't be competitive in. And these kids are they're just ruling. Mm-hmm. And I can't figure it out. So I've spent 2 years of my life trying to learn how to use that method and technique as well as some of these younger guys. And I've not been able to do that, to just be completely honest. But in doing that, I haven't had a lot of practice doing what I normally do, pitching a jig up under a boat dock or throwing a spinnerbait. And you can't substitute practice. There's no, I look at a boat dock and I think I can throw that spinnerbait under there. I used to with my eyes closed, and now I can't do it. Mm-hmm. The lack of practice. You got to be on the water and you got to practice. So I've gotten all out of step. But to go back and say why I was successful, number one, God blessed me. And I think what I didn't see then is he set me up for the opportunity to have a platform to use for his glory at this point in time in my life. I didn't see that. But big fish, make no mistake about it, big fish is a gift. It is luck. It is something that you can't go out and set your strategies on and make it happen. Winning the tournament, you can. You can put it together, but just to say, I'm going to go catch the biggest fish, there's 250 guys in this tournament, and I'm going to catch the biggest fish. There's no way you can set a pattern to make that happen.
Right.
And I won big fish like 10 times, you know? I mean, how does that happen? It was a gift, and it was from the Lord. And we talk about it, and I think it's a funny story. I was at the St. Johns River in Florida in a BASS tournament in 1978, and I came in the first day, and the guy in front of me had a fish that he thought was going to win, and you won a Ranger boat for big fish. That was a big deal, man. That's a big deal. So the guy in front of me, he had a 9.15, and he thought that was going to win that Ranger boat. Well, I was right behind him, and I weighed in a 10.5. And so it's really funny how it worked out. So I took the lead for the boat. Well, the next day they come in, and I got about a 9.5, and he's got a 10.7.
Oh.
So he knocked me out by 2 ounces. So now he's got the big bass. Well, the last day we come in, and I'm right behind him, and I got a 10.12. I won the boat.
That's
I won
what I'm
the
talking
boat,
about.
and I weighed in 2 bass over 10 pounds in one tournament. So that was pretty wild. I won the boat, but it was just a gift, and you can't count on winning big fish. But setting a strategy to win a tournament, you work hard and you practice. And I look at what you've built here. As we rode around Mossy Pond, it is the most impressive place I've ever seen. I can't imagine the amount of work and how hard and the dedication you have to building this. It's amazing. There's no substitute for hard work.
Yeah.
And in doing that, your priorities.
Well, that's what now this is for Brad Arrington right here. I want both of y'all to comment on this. And me and Danny got in a discussion about this the other day, and I'll be open. I hope the listeners get something out of it. But this is for Brad Arrington. You know, you mentioned some words and determination. Hard work, keeping your priorities straight. All of these things, and the better my walk becomes with Christ, the more I hear out of pastors and people I lean on in my D groups, and Danny the other day, is make sure your priorities are right, Brad. Make sure, and it's just like Danny, sin comes along with success sometimes. And, I got saved and baptized when my father-in-law passed, I think right around 10 years ago. And, and that was a gray area. And since then, I have rededicated my life. And what I'm priding myself in is to have that great walk with Christ, to be there for my kids, to let Christ shine through me with other people, with my 100 employees, with my ball teams I coach, with my dog trainers, with my guides. But is it realistic? And can you have both? Can you have that elite standard? Can I be the best dog training facility in the country? Can I be the best shooting preserve in the country? Can I have the best hospitality in the country? Because I am driven. That is what Brad wakes up at 4:30 every morning, gets up. Do I pray in the shower at 4:30? You dang right I do. Do I talk and I hope, and no, I slip, but sometimes, but do I try to all my employees see Christ shining through me? And what I mean by slip, I'm so driven, sometimes I get a little hot-headed with an employee. Sometimes it doesn't come out, what would Jesus do, like the bracelet says, and I keep going back to that. I say that to my kids on the ball field all the time. But is it realistic to have the elite standard? You have been at the pinnacle of your game. Can you be the best of the best and still have that Christ-like walk and do what God's wanting us to do? Is that doable.
That's my question.
Yeah.
I like what he said right there. So go back to 42, 45. How old were you when you won in that late 80s, your second classic? How old were you?
36.
All right. You know what it took to get there. You know where he is. I'm not on the level that you guys are and what y'all have accomplished, and you're still doing, and you're still doing. Could you do that and be on that level and have the integrity in the walk? Do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. Look at the
Oh,
success.
thank
Tim
you, Jesus.
Tebow. Yeah. Look at
I was holding my breath.
Look at Tim Tebow. What an ambassador he is for the Lord, and look how successful he is. I mean, he's a big name, and he's done an incredible job. One of the greatest college football players that ever played the game. Would have been a great NFL player had he hooked up with the right coach. I think that's a lot of it. But yes, you can be super duper successful, and I think God wants us all to be successful. He knows how much success we can handle, and I pray that all the time. God, don't let me have more than I can handle. Because if it costs me my relationship with you, I don't want it. I do not want it. The old song that George Beverly Shea sung, I would rather have Jesus than anything, than silver or gold, riches untold. So don't let me have more than I can handle. But the number one thing is we have to realize when we give our life to Jesus Christ, we are no longer our own. We're bought with a very heavy price. He died on a cross for us. And all we have to do to be his child is surrender our life to him. When we do that, we're no longer in control. He is. And as long as we put him number one at the top of that pinnacle, he's number one. Everything else under that will take care of itself as long as you keep him in place. And that's where I failed. And so many times I thought, if I do this, if I surrender this, if I don't do that, I have an opportunity and it'll go away. And the very first Bassmaster Classic I made, my dad was an alcoholic. My dad became an alcoholic drinking beer. And it led to hard liquor. And I had a rough childhood as a result of beer. So I didn't want any part of beer. Well, Miller High Life was a sponsor of the Bassmaster Classic. And so when I qualified for the Bassmaster Classic, in 1977, they had Miller High Life on the side of the boat. And so I knew going in, our last tournament was at West Point, Georgia, and I knew going in I was going to qualify. I think I was in like 12th place out of 20. At that time, the first year I qualified, only 24 pros went to the Classic. So I was right in the middle of the pack, about 12th. Well, I ended up finishing 9th in the standings, so I made the Classic. And so I was walking up the hill to go to the meeting with Ray Scott and all the Classic contenders, and I said, Lord, I'm not going. I know I'm not going to promote Miller High Life. I'm not going to do it. So I sit there and I listen to everybody talking about, and Ray giving us instructions on how this was going to work. And so when it was over, I said, Mr. Scott, you got a minute? I'd like to talk to you. And he said, yeah.
This was Ray Scott?
Ray Scott.
Okay.
And so I said, Mr. Scott, first of all, let me tell you how much I've enjoyed fishing your tournaments. That was my rookie year, was bass in '78. Now, I had fished national bass and American bass for 2 years prior to that, but this was my first year in BASS. And I said, I really enjoyed the tournaments, and I'm so excited about making the Classic, but I'm not going to come. He said, nobody qualifies for the Classic and don't come. Why would you not come? I said, well, I have a conviction that I can't endorse alcohol, and I can't get comfortable with it, and it's my personal conviction. I'm not condemning you. I'm not condemning anybody else that participates, but me personally, the Lord in my heart don't want me to promote alcohol of any kind.
That's a big decision.
And so Ray looked at me and started laughing. He said, it's funny. I said, what's funny, he said, Miller's out. They're gone. There ain't going to be nothing on the side of that boat but Ranger. I said, I'll be there. So,
that was the man upstairs.
Yeah. But Ray came back to me, and it was funny because I thought that I was going to offend him. And Ray came back to me, and he said, I really can't tell you how much I admire conviction.
Respect.
People
After
that live conviction. And it was a great inspiration to me and for me, and of course God was in control of that whole thing.
Well, and just like that, obviously it wasn't a surprise to the Lord, and that's why you're here today. What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his soul? The rich young ruler, Lord, I'll do it all, and the Lord said, that's good, sell it and come on, and he bowed his head. 1 Corinthians tells us in the first chapter, not many wise, not many noble are chosen, but God uses the simple things to put to shame the big things of this world. God knows our heart, and he knows our integrity. Furthermore, God knows our intent. God knows why we're doing what we're doing. God knows if he's number 4 on our top 10 list, or if he's leading that charge. Yeah. And when I look at this, like Brad and I discussed, in what I do, we help families. And when over the years, unfortunately, I've sat with countless families across the desk that have buried their child. That's one of the most sobering things you'll ever experience in your life. And you know what it makes you realize? I don't care. I don't care about all the things. There's a clock ticking over my head, and it's running out of time. And I will stand in front of you. And Lord, on that day when I do that, I want to be found faithful. But I've certainly smeared that. And I want to be found faithful. And I look at men like you, and I think about this, like I told Brad. So many people wrongly jump on the bandwagon that this is bad. No. You're building a platform. I mean, what we just saw is amazing. What you've seen, and people don't know most about you. People have no idea. Well, a lot of people do in this industry, how successful an outdoorsman you are. You've killed some of the biggest bucks of anybody I know. You guys have built something special. But you have something special. This podcast so far has been more about Jesus than anything.
Yeah. Well, he definitely. We didn't know he could turkey hunt until he come to South Georgia.
That's my passion. But let me tell you, you talk about can you live with the ambition of being number one. I think God wants us all to have ambition. I think God wants us all to be competitive in this world, to be successful. But you have to do it by putting him number one.
Yeah.
And whatever that means, and it may be times that you disagree. God, this is not right. But if you will go and follow, you'll realize that what you may have thought was going to be a dead-end street or was going to put you in a bind turned out to be something that he blessed, and you got more than you were ever anticipating. I would have never even dreamed how to pray for what God has given me in my life. I mean, it's beyond anything I would have ever asked for. I don't even know how to explain. But in that, you're going to have failures. Every single day is a new day. Every day is a new challenge. And some of those days, as you said, you lose your temper with your employees. Man, I have. If you want to see me backslide, put me in heavy traffic. Pulling my boat and some little car pull right in front of me when I'm leaving enough space to stop.
My girls aren't in here.
Oh, I could lose my testimony really quick. But here's the wonderful thing. There are songs out there that says that he signed my pardon. Mm-hmm. I'm glad he didn't just sign my pardon. If he would have signed my pardon, I'd be back in jail because I'm a repeat offender. He redeemed me. I have been redeemed. He forgave me for my past sins, my pardon, but he did way more than that. He gives me for my current sins and my future sins. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to live in fear. I don't have to worry about whether I'm saved or not. I have been saved, and I can live my life, and I can have failures, and he can forgive. And people say, well, I don't know if he can forgive that. Don't brag on yourself for being a great sinner, because his grace is greater than any sin you can ever commit.
Amen.
And that is what you wake up one day, and this is what I challenge a lot of Christians feel, that they have failed and they want to quit. Man, forgiveness, it's not about falling down, it's about getting back up. We're all going to get knocked down, and we're all going to fail, and we're all going to come short. And I do it on a daily basis. But God is a forgiver. And you say, well, how many chances do you have? How broad is God's grace? Yeah. As far as the east is from the west. So his grace is sufficient for anything that we do. So as you've battled this battle to try to have the number one hunting preserve in America, that have the best dogs in the world, to be the greatest fisherman, to have the greatest apparel company. When you're in these fights, and it is a fight, man, business is a fight. And this world's standards have changed, and people are dishonest, and you have to deal with all of that. And sometimes it's overwhelming. And sometimes you don't act as Christ-like as you should. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to go back and say, Lord, I messed up. Yeah. I had an opportunity to be a witness. Instead, I got angry, and I wasn't a very good ambassador. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. And he would say, not a problem. It's okay. I love you. You know what you did wrong? Correct it. Go forward.
If most people spent one day out here and could borrow your phone and answer the amount of text and calls and make the decisions you make, and then say, now show up and smile and whistle and skip around. You know, people often, and they don't mean well, but it's so quick. One example we just had, all right, the Super Bowl, if I may speak to this, and I was overwhelmed with the people. You've heard of Jelly Roll. You probably saw that thing. Yeah. Now, hear me out. He goes on there and he says stuff just like Kid Rock. And I was overwhelmed with the people now. Now listen, follow. Saved people that were so quick to chastise and judge him. Now listen, here's the thing. Now you think just a moment. And men of God supposed that were leading God, that were quick to beat that man up and just say, oh Lord, and throw stones at him. And let's just say, what if you're him and you sat down that evening and you genuinely are being converted? We forget sanctification. You don't just wake up and you're better. You've had a foul mouth. That don't go away overnight for most people. It took me a long time to get rid of that. Say he's sitting on his couch and he watches 3 preachers in a row as he goes through his phone beating up on him. And he's trying. Look what a platform he's got. Now, granted, we don't need to put him as our cheerleader. We need to sit back with wisdom and discernment, but we need to pray for him. We need to pray, God, that you move, because what a platform. Now, granted, if his fruit doesn't line up, the Bible says that, good trees don't make bad fruit and vice versa. So if it doesn't, if it's not real, so be it. But in the meantime, let's slow down and let's get in behind folks that are trying, that are putting one foot forward and say, let's love this brother. Let's pray for this brother. Let's lift him up and see what God can continue to do through him.
I agree. The Bible says, how can you get the speck out of your brother's eye when you got a plank in your own eye? Get the plank out of your eye and then get the speck out of your brother's eyes. I think we're way too critical. I remember when Chris Christopherson, I was a member of a church that just would not allow Why Me, Lord to be played in there, because Chris Christopherson was a movie star and a country music singer, and he had done some things that was not necessarily approved by the Baptist, which is fine. I'm a Baptist, and I don't have any problem, but I think Chris Christopherson got saved. And I think he wrote that song out of genuine love for Jesus Christ. And I think that people judge him much like some judge Jelly Roll. I think they're quick because he doesn't fit the template of a normal Baptist.
And granted, old things pass away and all things are made new. He should, you should see a change. You can't continue to sing all these crazy songs. There's going to have to be some change, no doubt. But you can't just throw him off the bridge just yet,
Well, with just like what we're talking about and what the success and him being elite, because he has done a fine job, gave him the platform to witness.
100%.
And God had a plan for him way long ago before he was born. But to look at his past, you would have never dreamed it in a million years. But thank God that it worked out. And, I just fight it every day. I want to have the best walk with Christ that I can have. But I'll be honest, and maybe this is what my question is this me being selfish? Brad Arrington loves hard things. If they're difficult, I love them. That's what, I love them. That's what makes me tick. Give me problems, just like Danny talked about my phone. And most people are like, I'd throw that thing. Man, that's what makes me go. I love it. I love that phone. I love trying to fix a dog when he's, I had a mentor, Hugh Arthur. He's won more field trials, more blue ribbons than anybody in all different stakes. And he said, Brad, you got 20, 25 dogs on the trial truck. You work the worst one on there twice as much. And I said, yes, sir. I want to make him good. He said, if you'll flip the script on that and start working the best one twice as much, you'll start winning more. And what I realized is I just like hard things. I wanted the most difficult one out there. So with my drive, and I'm trying to turn that into my walk with Christ now, that's a hard thing. Just like what y'all said about dealing with all walks of life. People's integrity these days, it just blows my mind. I mean, how, and I don't know, it may be a thing from a million years ago or last 100 years, but it just blows my mind how people are not loyal anymore in relationships, whether it's a friendship or whatever, and it just pushes your buttons and makes you not want to Christ shine through you. The way that they, with this business, it's successful, but the way they will talk about you, the way the employees want to take advantage of you sometimes, the way the customers, oh, well, he's got plenty of money, he's doing great, so we'll do this or we'll do that, he won't mind. And people just don't cease to amaze me. I mean, can you keep that Christ-like walk, be elite, and let Christ shine through you and do hard things, be elite, have that excellent standard. And that's what I'm battling with day in and day out. That's what's inspired me to do this podcast. And that's what I'm trying to do. But it is a fine balancing walk.
It's, I've been reading Genesis. I went to the Ark and went to the Creation Museum and found it so intriguing, and I've been studying Genesis. And in doing that, you read about Jacob and Esau and Isaac, and they all live and they all die. And nothing that they ever accomplished in the world makes any difference. No matter how many sheep they had, no matter how many camels they had, no matter how much gold or silver or how big their tent or their palace or whatever they had, the only thing that's really recorded that has an impact on you and I is what they did in relationship with their faith in the Lord. So if you stop and you think and you prioritize things, you say, okay, there is a set time between when I was born and when I'll get that second date put on that rock. And only thing that matters during that period of time from those two marks, those two dates, is what you do for Jesus. Everything in this world will soon be past, and only that done for Jesus will eternally last. And if you stop and you look and you just go through the Bible, every one of these people, they lived and they died. And the only thing that made any difference is what they did for the Lord, what they did in obedience to what God wanted for their life. So that is just such an incredible example for us to realize how important is it going to be that I won the Bassmaster Classic in 1979 a million years from now.
Right.
I mean, come on. It's not even that big a deal now. It's been 40 couple years. It's not that big a deal.
The big scheme of things, you're right. Yeah.
But it's a big deal what you did for Jesus. It's a big deal that you impacted that person's life that you led that person to the Lord by sharing the gospel and sharing your testimony about your life, what God has done, and you impacted that person in a positive way for Jesus Christ. That'll be important a billion years from now, all throughout eternity. So if we really look at things, and it goes back to what you quoted just a moment ago, Matthew 16:26, what would it profit a man if he gained the whole world and lost his soul? What would it profit you if you won every trophy and got every acclamation in the world and you didn't live for God and you weren't Christian? I mean, that's going to be a terrible time to enter and say, Lord, I called on your name. You came into my heart. And then I ignored you for 50 years. I lived my life to suit me. And here I am in heaven. And I don't have one trophy to lay at your feet. I've done nothing for you. That's not going to be a happy time.
What a nightmare. And I think, the Bible tells us that God has put, here's one thing I think about when it comes to doing big things, so to speak, on this earth. The Bible says that God has placed eternity in the hearts of all men. Unless or until, it does not matter what we do here, until we rightly know Christ, that's never going to be right. However, when we do, it takes these accomplishments that you guys have going on, and man, it makes it really good. It makes it really successful. And the good news, I think about people just like you said, man, I came from nothing, I was nothing. And you tell your story. I think about old Phil Robertson, old poor duck hunter out in the middle of nowhere, ended up being one of the famous men in the world, most famous men in the world. God says that like the rivers of the water, he'll steer at the king's heart as he would. He controls the pieces and he moves it. We can try all we want, but God knows. God knew back then when this big bass kept biting your bait. I hate to see a bass fisherman, pray they get Lord, But a lot of those bass, I believe with all my heart, bit your bait because you'd be here today.
Oh, yeah.
Because this guy and myself and these people listening need to hear what matters most.
What a platform is created for him to witness. When you spoke the other night at First Baptist, holy mackerel. You do an amazing job in your story from A to Z. It was so impactful. So many people have been impacted by your story. And just like Danny Boy says, without the big bass biting the hook, you wouldn't have the platform to get up there and speak to everybody.
But I would still have a platform. If we got time, I want to share a story. I went to an independent Baptist church preachers conference. And I went because a friend of mine who I wanted to encourage, I went with him to be an encouragement to him. And I grew up in an independent Baptist church, and then I later became a member of a Southern Baptist church, and there's some difference, not a whole lot of difference. But I grew up in a church that was very legalistic. And some of the independents, and I'm not saying all of them are, but they're more legalistic than the church that I'm a part of now. And that's all okay. There's people that have problems with different religions, and I've read the Bible multiple times, and I've never read where you got to be a part of a denomination. Mm-hmm. But I went to this preachers conference, and I watched these preachers, and they were sad, and they had their wives, and some of them had their kids, and you could just look at them. They were beaten down, man. They didn't have joy. And we sat in this group, and we had two different speakers, and they're struggling. I looked in the parking lot, and I saw the cars they were driving, and they didn't have a lot of resources, and they didn't make much money, and the vast majority of them were pastoring little small churches. And the second speaker that got up was a guy named Stump Willis. And he got up and he said, guys, let me tell you, you're important. You're very important. And sometimes we don't realize how important we are. We all have a platform. Now, let me tell you something. There's reapers and there's gleaners. Never, ever be jealous or envious or covet a reaper. Man, they're important. Billy Graham, what an awesome reaper. He's so important. Adrian Rogers, Charles Stanley, and he names so many different preachers. These guys are reapers, and they're so important. But that's not your platform. God hadn't put you in a position that you can go and stand before a stadium of 40,000 people like Billy Graham. That's not where you're at. You're in this little small church, and that's where God's put you. And you think you're less important, but you're not. And so it's very important to understand that there's reapers and there's gleaners. And you may reach one that fell through the crack. He didn't go to the Billy Graham crusade. He didn't see it on television. But yet, because his mother is a member of your church, or his grandmother or his aunt, he comes under your roof and you give him the gospel. And nowhere else would he ever have gotten that. And because of you, and because of your faithfulness, and because of your steadfastness, you were able to deliver to this one guy or this one girl the gospel. And it could have been my daughter.
Yep.
Could have been your son.
Mm-hmm.
And because of your faithfulness as a gleaner, you delivered the gospel. He said, I dreamed about it one night. I dreamed about I died and went to heaven. And I just got this little old church. And my little old church is not very big. I'm in St. Matthews, South Carolina, and I've just got a few members. But I've been there for 40 years. And I feel like I've not been as impactful. And I die and I go to heaven and I'm around the big supper table.
Mm-mm.
And I sat down and there's a guy beside me and I said, hey, sir, what's your name? He said, I'm Paul. He said, Paul? The Apostle Paul? Yeah, I'm the Paul. Oh, my goodness, 4,000 people at Pentecost. Oh, my goodness, the Apostle Paul, man. He said, what's your name? He said, my name's Stump Willis. He said, never heard of you. And he goes all around. He meets Billy Graham and he meets all these different people and he meets them and he just greets them and he's so happy to see them. And every time he says, and what's your name? Stump Willis. Never heard of you. And he said, then the one that came in the room, it lights the whole room up. It has the eyes. That just looking in his eyes, he says, I love you. And he looks down and he looks at me and he says, Stump, thank you for your faithfulness. That's where we're at. We all are not classic winners. We're all not great dog trainers. We don't all have great apparel companies. We don't all have, but we got a platform.
Every one of us.
We got it.
Every one of us.
And we may reach that one that nobody else could reach.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We got to be gleaners.
Yep.
And that's the way you got to look at what you are. You are bought with a price. You're not your own. You've got your own realm. Be satisfied and be 100% intentional about spreading the gospel, and God will open doors and provide. And maybe you will never reach 1,000 people. Maybe you will never reach 100 people. Maybe you'll never reach 10 people. But if you reach one, that one may be the one that would have went to hell if it were not for you. That's got to be our mission. That is our mission.
And that elite standard, holding yourself accountable to do that day in and day out, is way more important than building the best dog, building the best business.
Absolutely.
And
it's hard.
Yeah, it's
you
hard.
got a challenge here, though. We got a challenge. It's hard for me. Yeah. I could mess it up real good.
We all do. But that's the wonderful part about, let me ask you this right here. You got daughters. You got
4 kids. 3 boys and a girl.
3 boys and a girl. If one of your little boys went out in the road and almost got hit by a car, would you hate him forever?
Oh, Lord, no. not an instant.
If one of your little girls cheated on a test in school and embarrassed you, would you hate her forever?
Never.
No. You'd love her to death. And you'd work on her. You'd work on her. Baby, don't do that. Don't cheat. This is what you got to do. But you love her. That's what Jesus does to us. That's what he does all the time. He's not mad. People think, well, the Lord's got to be mad at me as bad as I messed up. No, he's not mad. He's not mad. He's thankful you didn't get run over by that car, and he loves you. And he's going to teach you, stay out of the road. Don't cheat.
Mercy.
Yeah, mercy.
I desire mercy and not sacrifice.
Mercy and
Matthew
grace.
12. Grace and mercy. Lord, you give me what I don't deserve, and God, thank you that you don't give me what I do deserve.
Yeah.
Mercy.
Yeah, it scares me every time I hear somebody talking about they deserve this. Boy, don't talk about what I deserve. Oh, I don't want what I deserve.
For by grace we are saved through faith, and not of ourselves. It's a gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast.
Ephesians 2:8-9.
2:8-9.
That's good.
And Mr. Hank, we both have kids, and we're both in our 40s. What would you say to us? We are driven, but we want to get it right. Talk to men.
It's
and
hard.
ladies.
It's hard to get your time balanced with your kids, but the most important thing, you want to provide for them, but the most important thing is you provide your time.
Yeah.
And you intentionally live your life in front of them that they see Jesus. My kids, you're talking about a hothead. Somebody get upset over nothing and get fired up. My kids know that about me. They know about my temper, but they understand that that's not who I want to be. They understand who I want to be. And I've had an influence on them that I see now at Hank Jr.'s 51 years old. I see now what he has seen in me, and he knew my heart. And that is the thing you've got to be with children. You got to be transparent. You got to be real. You can't live one life at church and another life at home. You got to live the same life, and you got to be transparent. You got to be real, and you got to be intentional about spending time with them. Look for opportunities to spend time with them.
Wow. What an amazing outdoorsman. A lot of our listeners are outdoorsmen and do the things that we three love. And to have you here at Mossy Pond right here in my office is such an honor. And to have Danny sitting down there, all the ups and downs that we've went through in life and went through challenges, and to have him faithful to Brad Arrington through the years, and to be my man no matter what I needed, him always being there for me. It's such an honor to have y'all in the room for those accomplishments. But more so than that, to have the brothers of Christ that y'all are, and the light and the inspiration that y'all give me to be a better man day in and day out. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for your time today. It was such an honor.
Well, I sure appreciate the privilege of being here, buddy.
Me too. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank y'all so much. And thank you to the listeners, Danny boy. Danny, thank y'all.
Yes, sir.
And to the listeners, thank y'all so much. Hopefully y'all get something out of this. Just like I challenge myself day in and day out, challenge you. Let Christ shine through you.
Amen.
This is another podcast, Field Tested, with Brad Arrington.